A 14-year-old British boy has been referred to the UK's anti-extremism program after police feared he was being groomed into environmental activism. The authorities had been alerted by his teachers, who became concerned over what's described as his extreme beliefs. The teenager, known as Aaron, had signed an online petition on environmental issues, but his parents became increasingly concerned about his online activities, with the authorities tracing suspected links back to anti-fracking campaigners. He was used as a case study in a report on extremism in the wake of the Manchester bombing as an example of online exploitation into criminal activity. But local police later dismissed the links to anti-fracking groups, saying he was actually being targeted by a different group. Environmental campaigners say the decision to put the boy on the prevent list is offensive. Reaction now live from Kevin Blow, who's the coordinator for the Pressure Group Network for Police Monitoring. Welcome to the program. Now, the report says the boy was targeted after he signed an online petition and was on the outskirts of engaging in criminal behavior. How concerned are you that environmental campaigners are being tied in with extremism at this point?
Well, I think your viewers can understand why anti-fracking campaigners were absolutely livid yesterday when they discovered the case study in this report. The fact that that they've been accused of grooming a young person who was simply involved in political campaigning, and at the end of the day, thanks largely to the condemnation that came from ourselves and from the Green Party's peer, Baroness Janie Jones, the people responsible for that report were forced to clarify that the claims that were made were entirely false, that person hadn't been involved in the anti-fracking movement. But I think one of the concerns about the response subsequent to that and the clarification that was issued is, I think it probably raises more questions than answers. We don't know, for instance, why it is that anti-fracking was picked out as an example of alleged extremism, or where that idea came from. We have no idea what extremist environmentalism means. There's no definition of that in the report. And this comes back to a problem that there's been again and again with the involvement of counter-terrorism officers in this type of surveillance and responses to people involved in legitimate political dissent. That domestic extremism, the label that they use, has no meaning in law. It means pretty much whatever the police want it to mean.
Now, do you think that the police and his parents were right in the end to be concerned about unknown people on the internet encouraging him into activism? It's a 14-year-old boy.
It's very hard to say from the details that are available in that report, but what the suggestion seems to be is that he was involved in going to protests, handing out leaflets. These are the nuts and bolts of being involved in any form of basic local campaigning around any issue. The report approvingly says that the response of the police, which was to issue an abduction notice to the people that he was talking to, was somehow something that should be taken up again in the future, in circumstances where, as far as we can make out, no crime was ever committed. And this is the problem. This is the problem, that having gone down the route of labelling a particular set of campaigners, rightly or wrongly, but almost certainly with no particular legal basis, as extremists, the police then massively overreact to a perceived threat in what is, let's face it, supposedly a programme that is voluntary and intended to prevent people from becoming involved in terrorism. This has got nothing to do with terrorism, and we don't think the counter-terrorism police should have anything to do with interfering and disrupting legitimate campaigns.
Well, exactly, and of course we've mentioned that the police later dismissed the suggestion that he was involved in the anti-fracking movement. But what message do you think this sends to people who want to campaign over legitimate environmental concerns?
Well, it's the latest in a series of revelations about the involvement of counter-terrorism police targeting environmental campaigners, and particularly targeting the anti-fracking movement, which has been entirely peaceful, and which they should have no involvement in the surveillance and the targeting of. We say that we want to see an end to the smearing of campaigners as domestic extremists. There's no basis for it, and we want to see the complete removal of counter-terrorism police from any involvement in anything to do with public order policing. Those things are fundamental to changing, making sure this type of situation doesn't arise again.
Kevin Blow from the Network for Police Monitoring Pressure Group, thank you so much for your time.